Hi guys, I'm Andrew. I'm your TA for this class, one of your TAs, and today we're going to be looking at Program 2, kind of going over it and introducing you to it. So this is an assignment that's going to be due Monday, June 1st, so that's coming up, so make sure you get started. The focus of this lab is going to be on scoring cribbage hands. So basically you're going to be given 5 cards and you need to calculate the score. So let's get into kind of the details of that, what that's going to look like, and how cribbage is scored. So a hand is going to be 5 different cards. Each card has a rank and a suit, where the rank is like a number or a face value, such as 2 or Jack. Then the suits are going to be clubs, diamonds, hearts, or spades. So then to score a hand, there are 3 different ways. There's a flush, a pair, or a 15. So if all 5 of the cards have the same suit, for instance diamonds, it's flush, and that is 5 points. Then if any 2 cards have the same rank or number, that's going to be worth 2 points. So they give an example here that is 2, 2, 2, 5, 5, and there are 4 pairs there. So specifically that's the first 2 twos, the outer 2 twos, and the second 2 twos, and then the pair of 5s. So that's 4 points. It's 2 points for each pair, so that's 8 points in total. Now if any 2 cards add up to 15, that's called 15. It's worth 2 points. One thing worth noting is that an ace is worth 11, a king, queen, and jack are all worth 10. But then, like, if it's a 7, it's worth 7, clearly. So they give another example here. The ranks of the cards are 6, 7, 7, 8, and 9. There are 3 different 15s for a total of 6 points. Specifically, that's going to be 9 and 6, 7 and 8, and then 7 and 8 again with the other 7. So only it has to be 2 cards only. If it's 3 cards, it doesn't count, although I think in normal cribbage it would count, but we're going to ignore that for now. So then the value of the hand is a sum of all of the points that it scores. So once again, we have an example here that's 3, 4, 4, 6, and 9, and that's worth 4 points. That's going to be 2 for the pair of 4s, and 2 for the 15, that is the 9 and 6. So the assignment is going to be to take this Python file and modify it so that when it is run with a given input file, it produces a given output file. So let's take a look at the output. So this is what your program is going to be expected to print out, and so you're going to see that it's going to be hand and then a number, and then you're going to list the cards in the hand and then say how many points it scored. So the input file then is just going to be basically 1 hand per line. It's going to be 5 different cards, so 2 of spades, 4 of spades, 6 of spades, 8 of spades, and 10 of clubs for the first hand. You're going to need to take that, calculate the score, and then print out the line that we saw in the output file. So that's what you got to do, but let's take a look at what we have to work with. So this is the file that you're given, and you'll see that it says do not change anything below this line. So basically what we're going to have to do is make some functions up here so that these two functions can compute the score of a hand and print out properly. So looking at this at first, we have a main function. And it looks like right here we are opening and reading the file. You don't really need to know too much about that yet, but that's what this line does. And then it's going to call the process hands function given the cribbage file and the number 5, and then at the end it's going to close the file. The more interesting function is this process hands function, which has two input parameters, cribbage input and cards in hand. And I'm not going to go too in depth into this right now, but you can see that there are two functions that it calls that have not been implemented yet, so we're going to have to make sure that we implement those properly. And that's going to be print hand and evaluate hand. And so we can just define these really quick up here. Print hand. And print hand is going to take two parameters, and we're just going to call those h and n for now. And then the evaluate hand function is going to have one parameter. So we've got those implemented. And before we go more into this, let's go back and look at the rubric for this to make sure that we're going to do everything properly. So a few assumptions that we're going to make when we're building this program is that the input file can contain any number of cribbage hands, so it's not limited to the number that's in the given input file. We might have thousands of hands. I don't think we will, but we could. And that each hand is going to contain a 5-card hand, each line, I guess. All the cribbage hands in the input are going to be valid, so you don't need to worry too much about, oh, what if it's gives a rank of pumpkin. We're not going to do that. Don't need to worry about that. You should note that the program might be tested on a different set of cribbage hands. So even though we're asking you to use the input that we give and try and match the output that we give, if you were to say, just like say, if this is the hand and put in one of the hands that we give and then output, say the score is 2, if we change those hands up, you want your program to be able to handle that and to be able to score properly. So make sure to generalize your solution so that it's going to work on whatever hand we might feed it. And then lastly, the cards in the cribbage hand can appear in any order. So just because they're in a certain order in the input file that we gave doesn't mean they're going to appear in that order all the time. So don't restrict yourself in that way. Then the grading, let's take a look at that. 10 points for every flush being correctly identified, 15 points for every pair being correctly identified, and 25 points for every 15 being correctly identified. So that's just, make sure that you're identifying all the methods of scoring and, make sure that at least your program is doing it properly for all of the hands in the input file that we gave you. Then 15 points for a separate function being used to determine each different type of scoring. So what that means is that in this file, we should probably just right off the bat make 3 functions for each of the different types of scoring that we just went over. So flush, pairs, and 15s. And we don't know what the input is going to look like, so we're not going to do anything there yet. Then back to the grading. So now we've already got 15 points. 20 points, the format of your output matches the format of the sample output exactly. So just make sure that you're using the diff checker tool to compare those outputs, because you don't want to have incorrect spacing or something like that. That'll just lose you unnecessary points. And finally, the Python solution is properly commented, easy to understand, high quality, and does not contain unnecessary code. Yeah, so just, if you're doing something that's a little more complicated, try and leave a comment to sort of say what you're doing. Make sure that none of it is overly complicated and there's just no code in there, like say like a function that never gets called and it's just in there. And make sure that if you are using like print statements or something to kind of debug your program, make sure you remove those at the end so that they're not kind of cluttering it all up. So now let's go back to this program and take a deeper dive now that we know what we're going to be graded for. So I'm just going to kind of start us off. I'm not going to go too far, but I'm going to kind of explain how I would get started with this. And I think how I would get started with it is by just kind of looking at this process hands function a little bit closer. So it's going to be called from the main function with the cribbage file and the number 5. So the cribbage file is just the text file that we've provided. So it's going to start off by just setting number equal to 1. And then it's going to say for hand in cribbage input. So that's going to iterate over every line in the input, I would assume. Then hand is equal to hand.split. And it's going to make a list, it looks like. Yeah. So it's going to make some sort of list using the hands. And one easy way, if we want to see what that kind of looks like, we can just print everything that's being passed to this function. So we can print h, print n, and then print a blank line to kind of see. So I was gonna go a little bit further into this, but my microphone cut out as I was starting to do that, which I think is a sign that you guys are ready for this challenge and have already gotten you to the point that you need to be at. So just remember that you'll need these functions to get full credit. Don't change any of the code down here because that's all working properly, and we want you to be able to kind of work with what we've given you. So yeah, I think you guys are going to do great, and don't forget that there are office hours that you can come to if you're stuck on something or struggling with anything. Don't be afraid to ask questions in there, whether you just message us privately or post in the office hours channel. So yeah, good luck. Don't forget it's due Monday night, the 1st. Yeah, good luck, guys.